Live, this is your voice, your vote. Election night.
Your voice, your vote. It's election night.
The polls have just closed in California's special election, which was ordered by Governor Gavin Newsom. And on the ballot, one measure. And we've all seen the ads for this race.
Donald Trump is redrawing election maps to force through a Congress that only answers to him, not the people.
The politicians want their power back.
That's what they want to do, is take us backwards. This is why it is important for you to vote no on Proposition 50.
Hundreds of millions of dollars have been spent on Proposition 50, which would temporarily redraw California's congressional map to help Democrats. It's in response to Republican-led states, including Texas, doing the same thing, but to help the GOP.
This is just gratuitous election rigging by Texas, and so we have to fight fire with fire.
But is it just a game of tit for tat?
They poked the bear, and the bear is poking back.
What Texas did, people said, oh, we can't do that. Two no's don't make a right. It isn't two no's. It's self-defense for our democracy.
It's all about power, and it has nothing to do with helping the people. It's an affront to our state constitution and an affront to what the voters have voted for multiple times.
We are seeing an all-out redistricting war, and California has gotten put itself right smack in the middle of it.
The results of tonight's vote could have lasting impacts for years to come, and not just in California.
This is happening in 2025, but it might be that this is the biggest event that impacts 2026 and 2028.
This is a yes or no on the ballot, but it might as well be a D and an R in terms of the way people responded.
Our live election night team coverage starts right now. Good evening, I'm Michelle Fisher.
I'm Mark Brown. You're watching special statewide election night coverage. As the polls close here at 8 o'clock, ABC News is projecting that Proposition 50 has passed. There may not be anything to see yet in terms of results. That could change literally at any minute now. But this projection made right away based on the results of exit polling in California. Tonight, we will also have analysis and reporting from throughout the state, as well as in Texas, where this fight all started. We have crews stationed across California ready to update you on what's happening at their locations and what will happen next. We'll check in with everyone as the night goes on.
The team surely celebrating tonight is the Yes on 50 campaign.
Josh Haskell live at California Democratic headquarters in Sacramento. Josh, what's the mood up there?
Well, I can tell you I've covered a lot of election night parties. There's no cheering, there's no screaming. This isn't even a party, Mark and Michelle. This is a gathering. There have been surrogates here. We're at the California Democratic Party headquarters. They were confident going into tonight. They are not surprised by this result. ABC News, as you just said, projecting that Prop 50 will win this mid-decade redistricting effort. We may hear from the governor at some point. We're just not sure right now. But I can tell you that they are not surprised just because of how much money they were able to raise in such a short amount of time. All of the polls in the last few weeks showed that Prop 50 was on its way to winning, and the Yes campaign, speaking with them here this evening, they told me that their strategy of letting voters know that this will be a check on the Trump presidency when it comes to the 2026 midterms. They believe that that message was felt. President Trump controlling the White House, the Senate, the House of Representatives, and Democrats here in California feel like they can change that in 2026. I want to go to a little bit of sound earlier, an interview that I did with the chair of the California Democratic Party, Rusty Hicks.
Well, certainly, I think you have to recognize this. This is not just about redistricting. This is about a much bigger issue, not just a California issue, but a national issue. And California has in many ways felt the brunt of an out-of-control White House, and that has been emboldened by congressional Republicans and emboldened by a conservative Supreme Court. And so there really wasn't an issue about, are you aware of what's going on? This is an opportunity to speak up, speak out, and push back at this important moment.
And Mark and Michelle, I did speak with some folks from the No campaign earlier this afternoon, and the quote that I got is, regardless of what happens tonight. When you hear something like that, that really tells you everything you need to know about a campaign. The Yes campaign, really starting about a month ago, when they saw those polls, very confident that their message worked. We also have to highlight Gavin Newsom's new social media strategy. That broke through. Yes, he was tweeting and posting about more than just Prop 50, but Democrats and voters here in California seem to like his aggressive nature of taking on Republicans in the Trump presidency. Definitely something that fueled this Prop 50 campaign, and as you're seeing right now, a win for the yes vote tonight. I'll send it back to you.
Josh, thank you for that live report. That was from the Yes on 50 headquarters. Now we want to head just a few blocks away to the California Republican headquarters, the No on 50 side, where reporter Cornell Bernard is live. Cornell, what is the scene there as this projection rolls in?
The scene is very quiet, maybe a bit somber, but it has been really a down-to-the-wire campaign night here at the GOP headquarters here in Sacramento. There's been lots of phone banking going on with folks calling and texting voters, urging a no vote on Proposition 50, which of course would temporarily redraw California's congressional districts ahead of the 2026 midterms. Republicans have called it a political power grab by Democrats, which could leave a lot of voters in Northern California disenfranchised. Let's go now to a live interview. Sir, I know this is breaking news and live television. Tell me your name again. I know you are a politician.
Yep, I'm the state assemblyman for Assembly District 8. My name is David Tongipa, and I'm a member of the Elections Committee too, so I've seen all of Prop 50 from the first time it was created to all the way to today.
ABC News has just called the passage of Proposition 50 your reaction for your district, your constituents.
For me, I think it's a sad state for California. I think this is a loss for Californians when it comes to protecting our redistricting committee. I think that was the gold standard that everybody should follow. And what we've seen right now through this Prop 50 campaign is lies after lies after lies from the governor and the legislative body, fooling the people of California to believe the big bad wolf is somewhere in Washington, when a lot of our issues here in this state are the legislative body's fault. And so this part, for me, again, we need to make sure that we're talking about the real issues. And when it comes to Prop 50, this is something that the fight has just begun.
What happens tomorrow? What's next?
Well, I think that's where we're going to really... I used to play football for Fresno State, and so you bury the dead, you clean your guns, and then you recalibrate. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to keep on talking. It's one of the things that I'm proud of everybody who worked on this campaign and fought to the very end. Again, I said it as on the Elections Committee. I fought this every single step of the way, and we went all the way to the wire. And we're going to look over every option that we have, and we're going to explore those options because the fight to save California, save our redistricting committee, has just begun.
You're right. I know it has been acknowledged by Republicans that you were outspent by Democrats, despite having Arnold Schwarzenegger take to television and urge a no vote. Was that regrettable? Anything you may have changed because of it?
I think that's part of our calibration, is we are going to look at. We're going to review what mistakes were made and what things needed to be done, and how can we be better. Every single time that there's a loss or there's an issue, it's an opportunity to get better, and I think that's what we're going to do, looking at through all the avenues. But one of the things that I'll say that I'm proud about is that we have a room full of young people here, all the way to the wire, like you said, willing to fight for the future of California. My entire life, as I've lived here in California, has been one-party rule by the elites and the supermajority in Sacramento. So I look at this as just the beginning to getting started to fighting for the future. It's what I'm excited to work with a lot of the individuals that have worked on this campaign. And again, there are multiple opportunities where we can get better. I think that's what we're going to need to do. I've only been in office for 9 months. It may feel like 10 years, but it has only been 9 months, and I'll say it every single time. The fight has just begun.
All right. Hey, thanks for stepping in here. It's such short notice. This is breaking news here in California. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The Republican Party hopes to have more to say about the apparent passage of Proposition 50 a bit later tonight. We're live in Sacramento. I'm Cornell Bernard. Now back to you.
Okay, Cornell, thank you. Now that Proposition 50 has passed, California's 41st Congressional District will basically disappear. The 41st currently stretches from Corona to Palm Springs, but will now move entirely into Los Angeles County under this new redistricting plan.
Rob McMillan, following what's happening in Republican Ken Calvert's district tonight, we saw a line behind you before, Rob, and it looks like people are still waiting in line to vote, and they can if they were in line by 8, right?
That's right. Polls closed at 8 o'clock, but still a very long line of people here waiting to vote at Corona High School. Check it out. When we got here around 4 o'clock this afternoon, the line was about 20 minutes long, but now it's well over an hour. You can see it wrapping up, going all the way down around that corner there. Not only is Prop 50 a controversial issue, but it affects this community more than others because the makeup of this district, as you were pointing out, could change completely if Prop 50 passes. Now, let me explain why. Let's first bring up a map of what District 41 looks like right now. You can see on the western edge, it starts here in Corona, then moves southeast toward Lake Elsinore, east into Menifee, and then on the eastern end of that map, it covers parts of the Coachella Valley. But if Prop 50 does indeed pass, this is what District 41 would look like. As you mentioned, not even in the Inland Empire anymore. Voters in Downey would decide who represents them in this district. Many of those voters liberal, meaning Republican Ken Calvert would most certainly face a steep uphill battle to retain the seat in Congress he'd held for more than 30 years. And as we've been talking about, that's done by design. When Governor Newsom initiated this strategy, this was one of 5 Republican-held seats he was targeting. Now let's go to another map as to what will happen here in the city of Corona. Again, this is the way District 41 falls currently. It covers the entire city of Corona. But if Prop 50 passes, as we're projecting it will, that will also change. Here's what it will look like in the future. The northern part of Corona would then fall under District 39, which is represented by Democrat Norma Torres of Ontario, and the southern part of the city would then be part of District 40, which is currently represented by Republican Young Kim of Orange County. Voters we spoke with this afternoon weighing in on both sides.
The fact that we are responding in kind to what's happening in Texas and what they're trying to do in other states, I think it's a good thing. I mean, I don't think we should sit back and watch our freedoms get taken away.
I voted yes because I'm voting for my people who don't have a voice.
My thoughts are if it's not broke, let's not try to fix it.
Democrats are trying to take over everything, and this is not fair.
Frankly, I think Newsom's making a mess out of this state. My thoughts that they wasted millions of dollars for one item on a ballot to create all this expense for this quote anti-gerrymandering thing.
And almost every voter we spoke with this afternoon and this evening pointing out to their thoughts when it comes to how they voted, saying it wasn't any particular small local issue. It was more big picture, more ideological. One person we spoke with who supports Prop 50 said he would not have voted that way had we not seen some of the redistricting going on in other states across the country. Live in Corona, Rob McMillan, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
And Rob, we want to ask, since this projection has come in, how has that impacted people in line there? Are some people just saying, hey, I'll just go home now, or do people still feel like they need to make their voices heard?
Well, I see a lot of people on their phones, but not sure how many people have or are paying attention to whether that projection or whether they've seen that projection. We have not seen anyone leave the line yet. There was a little bit of frustration we've seen throughout the evening. Some people saying that it doesn't appear that there are enough workers in there. We walked in there, there were several, but very long lines here in Corona. And one other thing to point out, when they closed the polls at 8 o'clock, we had one of the employees here come out and say the polls are now closed, and then walked away, and people were sort of left, wondering what was happening. But then she did clarify, yes, if you are in line, you can still vote. And I can really say I haven't seen anyone leave this line even after that projection came in.
And you've been out there for most of the day, if not all day. Has it been like this all day in terms of the long line? Is turnout very heavy in this particular district?
Well, to be clear, this is our second location that we've gone to. The first one was a drop-off only location where people could not vote. People were actually showing up there frustrated, thinking it was a place where they could vote, and so a lot of them had to turn around and come here. This is one of the places where you can vote. Obviously, people who just need to drop off their ballots can go straight to the front of the line here. Others who need to vote in person, they're the ones waiting in this long line. I did speak with a volunteer here whose job it is to go to many of these polling locations and look for anything that might be irregular. She says from all of the locations she's been to so far tonight, this one has by far been the longest line. Again, at this point, it's tough to tell why that might be. She was saying this is one of the only vote-in-person locations on the western end of this area, so perhaps this is where everyone needs to come, but she did say that this is by far the longest line she's seen tonight. All right.
It will be interesting to see how voters in this particular district ended up voting. Calvert won 52-49 when he was up for re-election last time. We'll see what the turnout is and what the spread ends up on Prop 50 just in that particular district. Rob McMillan, thank you for that live report. Now, since it is projected that Prop 50 is going to pass, some California congressional districts will change drastically.
Yeah, an impact across our entire state. Jory Rand standing by with an interactive map and look at what that might look like. Jory?
Yeah, so some of the numbers are beginning to come in. Here's a map of the state. The green that you see is voting yes on 50. Some of the black counties up here are voting no. This is not surprising. This is some of the area that will be affected, that will effectively lose their representation. We're talking about Republican counties and districts that have Republican representation in Congress now that are voting no, who are going to likely be represented by Democrats moving forward because of this redistricting. We are waiting for LA County down here to send some of their numbers. Orange County is already reporting, and Orange County, with about 64% of the vote in, is voting yes. But a big turnout, even statewide. Let's look at the totals again. Statewide, we are looking at right now 2.2 million votes. We know about upwards of 7 million or more sent their ballot in early, mail-in ballot voting. So we know the last presidential election, last year, 2024, about 16 million votes were cast in the state of California. If we're talking about 7 or 8 million mail-in ballots early, that's half the vote of what we saw at the peak of what you're going to see in voting in California. Those on-year 2024 presidential elections are the benchmark. That's basically, they had about 71% of all registered voters come out and vote in 2024. You don't see that very often. So to have that many voters coming out on a single issue and an off year shows you that voters are motivated in this state. We have some local counties coming in. Riverside County, about 2/3 of the vote in, voting yes, 235,000 to 178. San Bernardino County, which saw about 760,000 votes for president last year, already with about 280,000 votes cast for yes. We have Imperial County down here at the border. That is voting yes as well, and we have some San Luis Obispo votes coming in, about half the vote voting yes. We are still waiting for this large block of LA County to see what they are going to say. We know it's going to be yes. It's just a matter of the turnout, the margin. We'll see what that winds up being. Here is what Rob McMillan was talking about. District 41, this is what it looks like now. Watch what happens when we change to the proposed vote. It moves way out west to Downey. So Ken Calvert's district, he's representing this area, Palm Springs, Hemet, Moreno Valley, Norco, and the Coachella Valley. That is going to be taken over by District 39, District 40, District 48. All parts of this region that are going to be split up and spread out. As for 48, this is what it looks like now. This is what it's going to look like. So it stretches up into Palm Springs, taking over some of that Ken Calvert district. That was the goal. Democrats want to gain 5 seats in California. It's exactly what Texas did, with 5 seats likely gained in Texas for Republicans. The difference was in Texas, it wasn't written into their constitution that they had to protect the state from gerrymandering. It already was gerrymandered. The president said, do this, get me 5 more seats, and they jumped at it and just legislated 5 more seats. They outwardly said this is simply for partisan gains, which you are allowed to do in Texas. In California, we voted years ago to have that independent commission. This vote could not change, this map could not change without the voters' approval. And so that's what Democrats have thrown together in the last 3 months, put this on the ballot, and it looks like it has now passed, meaning next year, beginning next year, the vote for Congress will be with these new maps for the state of California. We'll see. It's not a given that the Democrats will win those, but it is likely. Spreading those out, we'll see if it pans out. First vote next year in November. Guys?
All right. Jory Rand, thank you.
Well, local Democratic leaders are gathering at a party hosted right here in Los Angeles.
All right, let's go right there. Representative Eric Swalwell in downtown LA is there. Congressman Swalwell, thank you for joining us. Your thoughts on the passage of Proposition 50?
This is a big statement that the voters of California have made tonight, and it mirrors what we're seeing in Virginia, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, which is that we are going to fight back for affordability, fight back for our immigrant communities, fight back for the rule of law. And so we are not just making this about drawing lines on a map, but it's drawing a line in the sand. And so Californians have spoke very loudly, and if the president didn't hear us before, he better hear us now.
Representative, thank you for that insight. What did this personally look like for you? What were you out there doing and saying and campaigning to help this proposition pass? What did you encounter when you spoke with voters?
I was in Folsom last night, and that's deep red Folsom, represented by Kevin Kiley, and 600 people showed up at a rally there, and they told me that this administration, it costs too much. It costs too much for groceries, it costs too much to buy a home, and it costs too much figuratively because rights are being taken away, and they see this as a way to speak up, speak out, stand up, strengthen numbers, and show the administration that we're not just going to roll over for the president's ambitions to take away our rights and to jack up our costs.
The president had a lot riding on the redistricting in Texas, and also he was obviously clearly against redistricting here. What do you make of the fact that the president didn't come out here to campaign, and that also Republican big donors, many of them, didn't step up to put their money where their mouth was? They were outspent almost 2-to-1 when they could have matched the Democrats or the proponents of Prop 50 dollar for dollar.
Democrats were united from the very beginning, and I'll be honest, I've never seen anything like this. You know, the California delegation, about 40 or so members of Congress, we were united from the beginning that we had to join together, match what was happening in Texas. There would be no infighting. There would be no, trying to poach someone else's district or win by a bigger percentage and put another seat at risk. And so our unity was our strength the whole way through. And the lesson to be learned here, whether you're a college university president or a law firm managing director or an entertainment executive who's being won off by Donald Trump with these dirty deals, is you don't have to do these deals with Donald Trump. You can link arms with others and stand up to a bully, and that's what the California delegation did, and that's what the people of California did in an overwhelming number tonight, that we are bigger than him when we link up and fight for what we believe in, and that tonight was our California values.
This only half of the battle to have this proposition pass. The next step here, if you all were to gain those additional 5 seats, that also depends on various campaigns. So what does that look like? What are you all talking about within your party to say, hey, okay, this is the next step, and this is how we achieve those 5 additional seats?
The case is entirely about affordability, that this president promised on day one he'd bring down the costs of groceries, bring down the cost of everything we consume, and it's almost day 300, and he's 0 for 300. So if we stick to affordability, that if you work hard in California and you bet on yourself, your country should bet on your job and wages going up, bet on your health care and the costs coming down, bet on your kids' education and safety, and bet on your future, we will win. You saw whether it was in New York City or Virginia, the message was affordability, and that strikes through, and that's where the president's the weakest, and that's our pathway to the majority.
You spoke a second ago about the future, about the way things are moving forward, and I would be remiss in not mentioning the fact that Senator Alex Padilla is deciding, spoke out today and saying he's not going to run for governor. What about your political future? Have you thought about running for governor, and is that going to happen?
Yeah, I've been all in on Prop 50. Senator Padilla is a great leader for the state. I can tell you this, the next governor has to match the energy that Gavin Newsom has brought on behalf of the people of California. The people need a fighter, a protector, and somebody who understands the affordability and livability issues here in the state. There'll be a day to focus on that, but today I'm celebrating what the voters just did, loudly defending the rights of the people of California and saying, don't poke the bear.
Okay, I didn't hear a no there. That sounded a little like a campaign speech, but I guess we will have to wait and see what the future holds with regard to you and your aspirations for governor.
All right. Well, anything else you'd like to add before we let you go?
This was volunteer driven, and I'm standing with about 300 volunteers who made the phone calls, knocked on the doors, they listened to the voters. Texas and Indiana and Florida and all these states that have done their rigged districting, they didn't go to the voters. California, we did it the hard way. We went to the voters. We did it in about 90 days, and the voters were with us. So if you trust the people and you go to the people and you make the case to the people, they will be with you, and that's a lesson to be learned as we go into the midterms.
All right, Congressman Eric Swalwell, thank you very much. Democratic Congressman in California, thank you for joining us. One place that's already been busy for days and will be throughout the night is the LA County Ballot Processing Center.
A vital part of this election here. That's where Leanne Suter is live for us in the City of Industry. Leanne, what's happening there?
Michelle and Mark, they are just getting to counting right now. I'll show you live behind me here inside the specialized room. They are now beginning to count the actual ballots that they have had come in. So far, they are just counting the mail-in ballots that have come into the ballot processing center here. They are waiting on all of those ballots to come in from all of the polling places, all of those drop-off boxes. But right now, they're simply working on processing and counting all of those mail-in ballots. But take a look. This was the scene earlier today. It was busy throughout the center as they were processing all of those ballots. The 1.4 million mail-in ballots had come in today from the mail system that they had gotten, but they expect many more to be coming in. They say that the turnout has been very high, relatively high for a special election. Registrar Recorder Dean Logan says he is very happy with the turnout. This certainly has been a highly contested special election on congressional redistricting. The Department of Justice has said they were going to be sending federal monitors to keep an watch on the election. They said they were going to be sending monitors to 5 counties within the state, including Los Angeles County. In kind of retaliation to that, in response to that, Governor Gavin Newsom saying the state would be sending their own monitors then to keep an eye on the federal monitors. Both sides wanting to keep a very close eye on this election. But as I said, Registrar Recorder Dean Logan saying so far they are feeling very good about how this election is going.
We're feeling good about the operations. We're feeling good about the voter participation. We had a significant number of voters vote by mail before Election Day, as well as people who participated in the early voting period at our 251 vote centers.
Another live look at the tallies going on right now. Again, this is inside this really special room here. There's absolutely no internet access. It is sealed off. This is the only place where they can actually count ballots, count those votes. The other area of the building is where they are checking signatures. They're making sure that they are in the sealed proper envelope. They're making sure that no one sent in double ballots. They're really running through the process to make sure that everything is legal and it is a proper ballot to be counted. But in this room, that is where the actual counting is continuing. We're waiting to look or hear some of the numbers that are starting to come out from the county. Those are expected any moment now as they begin to run through those first ballots they have. Again, 1.4 million mail-in ballots have already come in. Talking about turnout, Dean Logan said today that right now voter turnout's running about 33 to 34%, but he says by the time that they count all of the ballots and count all of the folks in line here in LA County, he expects that turnout to be closer to more than 50%, which he says is pretty sizable for a special election. But here at the ballot processing center, a little bit quiet right now again as they are waiting for all of those ballots to start coming in from all of those precincts and all of those polling places. So everyone here anxious to get to work to begin to officially count all of the votes in this election. That is the very latest here at the Ballot Processing Center. We'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
A long and busy night ahead for the folks there, Leanne. Thank you for that live report. Now, similar tallying happening at every board of elections in each of California's 58 counties.
That includes Fresno County. That's where reporter Gabe Ferris is joining us live. Gabe, you're at the Fresno County Elections Office warehouse. How's the counting going there?
That's right, Mark and Michelle. We are here at the Fresno County Election Warehouse, and officials at this hour are working their way through processing and counting all of those vote-by-mail ballots that were returned through today. And I have to tell you guys, it's actually a lot quieter than we were expecting. Fresno County, one of just 6 counties in the country, one of 5 counties in the state where we were told federal election observers from the United States Department of Justice would be. But right now, we haven't seen any sign of them. Now, that decision by the United States Department of Justice there actually prompted a response from the state attorney general's office and even local politicians here at Fresno City Hall. We even heard from both sides that they would be sending their own observers to honestly observe the observers in sort of a strange twist of events there. Now, just a little while ago, I went to the check-in desk here at the warehouse. It's where observers would have to sign in, write their name, sign their name, and then tell their affiliation or explain the organization that they are with. And that list didn't have anybody from the United States Department of Justice or even the California Attorney General's office. So I'll have to see how this shapes out through the night. The officials here will be here for several more hours counting and processing all those ballots. We did get first results just a little while ago, shortly after polls closed at 8 o'clock, and we are told by the clerk and registrar of voters for Fresno County to expect at least 2 more updates well into the evening hours here. Now, this is all in the backdrop of the Central Valley being home to 3 of the state's 9 Republicans in Congress. So now that we know that Prop 50 is projected to pass, the implications here expected to be far-reaching. Mark and Michelle, I'll send it back to you.
All right, Gabe, thank you very much. Reporting from Fresno County. Thank you.
Yeah, and he mentioned those monitors that were possibly coming in to take a look at these election results. He was in Fresno County there, but also we know Riverside, Orange County, Los Angeles, Passaic, and Kern County, where the Department of Justice had said they were going to send election monitors. And then obviously our state attorney general saying we would send monitors to monitor the monitors. But according to that report from Gabe there, who was in Fresno, he has not seen anybody, at least at that location. So still unknown if those monitors are in fact moving around the area today. But speaking of California Central Valley, that's one area that will see some drastic changes with redistricting.
Warren Armstrong joining us now live to talk about the impacts in those districts. Warren, what can you tell us?
Indeed, Mark and Michelle. Central California considered one of the battlegrounds for the Prop 50 campaign, especially when you consider that 1/3 of California's congressional GOP delegation represents this area. On our vote tracker right now, you can see the current numbers. It's basically 65-35 with almost 60% of the vote in. It's a little bit different story here in Central California. Let me zoom in and show you. Right now, you can see that the green areas represent the yes votes. The blue or gray areas represent the no votes. Let's start in the South Valley. Kern County voting against Proposition 50. Also, Tulare County against Proposition 50. Little Kings County down here, 60-40 right now against Proposition 50. Up to Fresno County, the most populous county in the Central Valley, right now it's just about split, 50-49. Very, very close right now with just about 60% of the vote in Fresno County. Madera County, the very same thing. Mariposa County, it is once again almost 60-40 against Proposition 50. And again, over here in Stanislaus County, 50-50 right now. One thing to remember about this, with this situation that we have going on in Central California going against Prop 50, if you'll recall, a lot of this area right here, 1 year ago, all voted for Donald Trump. It was all red. It was a sea of red going through Central California. So one of the seats that we're going to see a big change is in District 22. This is the district right here, just south of Fresno. It's in the South Valley. It comprises Kern County. It's also Tulare County, and it's Kings County. It's currently represented by Republican Congressman David Valadao of Hanford. He's been in office since 2012. This is one of the seats that Democrats have had their eyes on for quite some time. Why? Because actually the Democratic registration is larger than the Republican registration, as well as the no party preference registration. Valadao has won on the strength of the Republicans and the folks who are independents coming and giving him victories. But now this seat's going to change. This is one of the 5 that Democrats were looking at to try and take over with Prop 50. This is the way it currently looks. As we go now to what is proposed, you will see that again, pardon me, this district is still Kern County, it's still Tulare County, and it's Kings County, but it loses this chunk of Kings County, and now it goes north into Fresno County. It takes the west side of Fresno County up into the little city of Kerman, but it also takes, let me show you, it takes this area of the city of Fresno, which has a stronger Democratic registration as well as a Democratic stronghold, if you will. It puts more Democratic votes into this district. And Democrats are hoping then that this change will again put this district into Democratic hands. Mark and Michelle?
Thank you very much, Warren, for that detailed report from the central part of the state. Quite different from things in this part of the state in terms of registration and the way people are responding to Prop 50. Of course, today would not even be an election day in California if not for Texas. Prop 50 is a direct response to Texas's new redistricting maps that could add 5 Republican seats to the House of Representatives.
Nick Notario live in Houston to speak about that. Now, Nick, we know this all started with Texas. So what has the reaction been like in the Lone Star State to what's happening in California tonight?
Well, we're starting to get some reaction from the Texas Democrats. They posted on social media not too long ago saying that they were thanking the people of California for what they say were undoing Governor Greg Abbott's, quote, nefarious gerrymandering. Now, of course, Governor Greg Abbott, I've been monitoring his social media, has not said anything yet. However, he has said recently that he believes that the California map will ultimately be thrown out by the courts. And he also says when it comes to a new map with new census numbers in 2030, he believes California is going to lose congressional districts and Texas will gain them. So while they're celebrating tonight, the governor says, okay, well, he'll be happy in 5 years when Texas gets more representatives.
In light of what happened in Texas with the redistricting there, immediately went to court to try to stop it. What's the status of those legal maneuvers right now?
Well, it's currently in court, in federal court right now. There was hearings not too long ago, and we are expecting an update soon. And, you know, I talked to a law professor recently, and he told me that they have to do this quickly because the primary with those new maps is 4 months from today. And in just 4 days, candidates have to start to file. The deadline is December 8th, so they can start to file on November 8th. So we're going to have to find out very soon. And, you know, this professor said that sometimes the court system can take a while for this to go through. However, he believes we're going to get an update very soon as to whether or not Texas's map will be legal.
Notario in Texas, thank you very much. We may come back to you a little bit later on tonight. Thanks for showing us the map.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get back to our Jory Rand, who is keeping an eye on some of the results as they're pouring in right now. Jory?
Right, so we know that the yes has been called for the state of California. Let's look at how the map is breaking down. We saw that Central Valley talked about that remains as a no vote. Clearly on the coast, it is firmly in the green tonight. LA County, we have about 64% of the vote in. We believe that's mostly mail-in balloting that gets tallied first. Over 1 million votes so far in LA County voting in yes on 50. So LA County had about 3.7 million votes last year in the presidential election. We are already up to 1.4 million votes cast and counted in LA County. We're expecting another 35% of the vote to be tallied. We were trying to go back in time to figure out turnout, how this compares to what we've seen in off-year elections. 2021 was the recall of Governor Newsom. That we saw about 12 million total votes cast in the state of California. Right now, we are at about 6.5, more than 6.5 million votes cast so far just in the state of California. Trying to find another off-year proposition election. We're talking an odd number year where there wasn't a major governor or statewide election on the ballot, simply a proposition. You have to go all the way back to 2009. There were a set of propositions on the ballot in 2009. The total vote then was about 4.5 million total. We have already passed that tonight simply with our mail-in ballots. So again, LA County, we've got the mail-in ballots we believe mostly tallied. 74% to 26%. It may vary a little bit once we get the day of voting and those voting boxes tallied. Orange County still in the green with 57 to 42, 43%. Riverside County, 56-43. In San Bernardino County, voting yes right now, 58-41. And San Diego County with 800,000 votes here. So again, a large turnout. We're waiting to see more of the day of voting enter the system. We will continue to see it populate throughout the map throughout the night, and we will bring you the latest, but it is an overwhelming vote right now, 64% to 35%. That's even outperforming Gavin Newsom in his 2021 recall election. We'll see if that holds once the rest of the night is tallied, guys.
Some good insight into past elections there. Jory, thank you for that update on the numbers. Now, based on the recent polling, the Yes on 50 campaign, they've been feeling good about this for a while.
Yeah, Monica Madden live at the California Democratic headquarters in Sacramento with a look at what's happening there. Monica, of course, the governor was front and center in the campaign for Proposition 50. How's it going up there?
Yeah, Mark and Michelle, of course, and we're waiting for the governor to be front and center here again today. There's kind of a bit of a media circus behind me here at the Democratic headquarters where we're waiting to hear from what is expected to be a victory speech from the governor. You know, a couple weeks ago or months ago in some of these early polls that we first saw on Prop 50, it wasn't looking like voters would approve it and go for this gambit, originally showing about 50% of voters were in support of Prop 50. But you have seen so much money raised and spent in this race, more than $250 million total fundraised for both the yes and no side. Of course, with the yes side, spearheaded by Governor Newsom, they got way more cash in this entire effort. Spending 2 to 1, I believe, is the number from yes versus no. So it was a lot of money, one of the most expensive races in California history as far as ballot measures go. And, you know, my colleagues and I at ABC News did a report recently about how this was really a major moment for the governor and a test not just for whether or not voters wanted to approve this one-time gerrymandering to fight Texas, as he says, fight fire with fire, but it's also been a major test for Governor Newsom in terms of his political might. Of course, we've been reporting about his presidential ambitions. We all know that he has been and has said recently that he is considering running for president in 2028. So this, of course, having Prop 50 having such major national implications in terms of the balance of power in Congress also has a lot of impact on his ambitions for his future political prospects. And I do want to point out we got some interesting numbers from the campaign recently that were part of those reports. A campaign spokesperson tells me that 1.2 million different people from all 50 states donated to the Yes on 50 campaign. So that just goes to show how much this became more of a national issue, whereas here in California, we were hearing a lot of opponents talk about the Independent Redistricting Commission and wanting to protect that. But Newsom, of course, successfully, based off of the outcome tonight, made this about Donald Trump, saying this is a referendum on his power. If Democrats are able to pick up more seats in Congress, then therefore they can have some more checks and balances. That was the argument that we heard. Major surrogates that were coming in. We had, of course, former President Obama, AOC, Elizabeth Warren, all starring in some of those ads we were seeing in the final days before Election Day. So a lot of Democratic superpower. And the campaign says that was helpful, but also this message that Democrats can fight back against some of these efforts that we were seeing in Texas and other red states. Mark and Michelle.
The surrogates were powerful and they were big, and the governor was a big spokesman as well. At one point, about a week before the election, the governor said, "Stop sending money. We don't need any more money." I've never heard of a politician of any sort at any level saying, "We've got enough money, thanks but no thanks." What does that say about the enthusiasm of the national at the national level, and also about what his feelings are about this?
Mark, I had the exact same thought. I've never seen a politician saying, hey, you know, thanks for the cash, but we're good. We've fundraised enough. I think that speaks volumes about just how much voters, not just here in California, but nationwide, like I said, individual small donor contributions from all 50 states, 1.2 million different people. This was an issue that people outside of California cared about. And I think it speaks to, you know, the governor's positioning of Democrats need to fight back, no longer taking this as Michelle Obama used to say, when they go low, we go high mentality. Newsom made this all part of his, resistance chops, saying this is a way that we can fight back. This is something that Democrats are not going to sit back on, write op-eds and say our hands are tied, no more taking the high road. A lot of the conversation was about, hey, we don't want to necessarily do this, but this is the position that we were in and we have to do something about it. So here we are, Mark and Michelle.
Yeah, a lot of people also liking his stance on social media and how the governor has kind of used social media as a tool to kind of fight back as well. Monica Madden, thank you so much for that live report. She's at the California Democratic headquarters tonight. Again, as the projection is that Prop 50 has passed in our state of California. Monica, thank you so much for that live report. Well, of course, we're going to head to a short break, but we'll be right back with the latest on Proposition 50. I'm Michelle Fisher. It's election night and ABC News projects Proposition 50 will pass. This is where the vote stands right now with this percentage here, 65% yes, 35% no. And that means with this win, the state legislature will temporarily redraw congressional maps across the state.
This was Governor Gavin Newsom's pushback for similar GOP moves in Texas prompted by the president. We'll have more, of course, coming up later on Eyewitness News. Good evening. Our special election night coverage of the special election in California continues right now. Proposition 50 projected pretty much from the moment the polls closed to have cruised to victory, and it appears to be doing that. Some 64% of the vote in, and it is winning handily at this point. We are expecting to hear from Governor Gavin Newsom very shortly to take what is known as a victory lap.
Yeah, and as people probably don't need to be reminded, but this all started over the summer when a redistricting effort happened in Texas at the urging of President Donald Trump. And then the governor kind of spearheaded this movement here in our state to fight back with a Proposition 50 that will allow our state now to redraw our own congressional maps and hopefully, in the Democrats' view, gain 5 additional seats in the House of Representatives.
That would match the 5 that the Republicans are gaining in Texas at the urging of President Trump, who went basically to the legislature and said, give me 5 more congressional seats. Typically in a off-year election or the midterms, the party in power tends to lose congressional seats, and he's trying to avoid that because the difference is so narrow between the GOP and the Democrats in Congress that he is hoping to maintain a majority and thus continue with his agenda with a Congress that will pretty much be compliant with what he is hoping to achieve.
Well, we want to go ahead and help us better understand what is at stake and what the future could mean after tonight. Christina Bellantoni, director of USC Annenberg's Media Center and a columnist for the Capitol Hill newspaper. Roll call. We appreciate you being here. Your initial reaction to, the polling numbers had kind of indicated this, but what's your reaction now that the projection is here?
all politics is local until it's not local. And tonight you saw across the country, clearly voters wanted to send a message to President Trump. That was the underpinning of the advertising. That was the sort of the political emphasis in just young people getting agitated. They wanted to do something 1 year after he was able to win back the presidency. Where I'm really fascinated to see is what's next. You guys have been doing some great reporting on what these maps will look like, who's going to run, the very short timeline and turnaround for them to come together and figure out who these candidates are. Here in LA, we're going to get a brand new congressional seat. That's exciting for the city of LA. And then, of course, what's going to be Gavin Newsom's future.
Right.
We know that this was a complete proxy setup between President Trump, the governor of the nation's most populous state, extremely important state. They've been clashing from the very beginning, and in some ways, they both relish this fight. They're both getting a lot of attention out of it, and I'm very curious to see what he ends up saying tonight.
It's interesting to note that, one of Donald Trump's weapons politically over the years has been holding rallies, getting people energized, going out to locations and trying to drum up support. That has been his strong suit.
Sure.
He did not do that in California. He didn't really have rallies, to my knowledge, in any of the other states where they took major losses tonight. Why do you think he wasn't out there campaigning, or at least appearing in ads, for example, to try to stop Prop 50?
In some ways, they're looking at the numbers. The Trump team has never been that traditional following the campaign playbook, but they are looking at the numbers and seeing that he is deeply unpopular right now in the midst of a government shutdown, which polls show that the voters are blaming Republicans being in charge of both houses of Congress and obviously holding the White House. So it didn't make sense for him to go out there and campaign for the candidates in Virginia or New Jersey. And yet he still goes out and endorses, but they're really keeping him a little bit at arm's length while still clearly afraid of his political apparatus and defying him or saying anything that they wouldn't want to do. And that plays out in the shutdown politics each and every day.
Is that a similar answer when it comes to the amount of money raised by both sides? Because, I think the numbers are about $167 million to $82 million.
Astounding when you think about how people are spending, why they're spending, what they're spending it on television ads. I will point out Gavin Newsom's ads here in California, getting his face out there, bleed into battleground presidential states, right? He's advertising in the media market that crosses into Reno and into Arizona. And these are, that's free advertising for his national political future as well.
And it's pretty much a given that he has a national political future.
Well, at least that he wants one.
That he wants one,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, we should be clear. What do you make of the incredible, we're looking at Virginia governor, the attorney general in Virginia, where the attorney general candidate on the Democratic side had written some really scandalous emails basically speaking about violence against his opponents, and he still beat out the Republican incumbent in Virginia. The New Jersey governor, governorship going to a Democrat. Prop 50, of course, has passed. The New York mayor, Mamdani, a socialist, a Democrat who's a self-described socialist. And there had been all this vicious campaigning against him, talking about his religious faith as well. Highest turnout in New York since 1989, I believe. What should Democrats take away from this? What should Republicans take away from tonight?
And this is back to that all politics is local. You can't draw the same conclusions about a candidate in Virginia who, for example, is actually like a more conservative Democrat coming from central Virginia and, the socialist candidate for mayor in New York. But what you can see is you need a message that energizes people. You need to tell people what you would do. Everybody was talking about what you would do for the working class, which is suffering right now in the middle of a government shutdown. Virginia especially, so many of the federal government workers are affected not just by what's happening with furloughs and not getting paid, but also by the cuts that we've seen since President Trump took office when DOJ first made all of those big cuts. It's a state that's really suffering. And so having that message of change, the change election just continues and continues. I've been covering politics 25 years and we're still having change elections every single time.
They're all change elections, aren't they?
How do Republicans respond to this? We heard today from the White House press secretary about there being this possible executive order that could.
Oh, wait.
I think
Sorry,
we've
hate to
got
interrupt.
some news that,
we're about to hear from someone whose political future just got a lot brighter.
For everybody, not just the Democratic Party, but what a night for the Democratic Party. A party that is in its ascendancy, a party that's on its toes, no longer on its heels, from coast to coast, sea to shining sea. But it was not just a victory tonight for the Democratic Party, it was a victory for the United States of America, for the people of this country and the principles that our founding fathers lived and died for. And so we're proud. We're proud here in California to be part of this narrative this evening. We're proud of the work that the people of the state of California did tonight to send a powerful message to an historic president. Donald Trump is an historic president. He is the most historically unpopular president in modern history. In every critical category, Donald Trump is underwater. He promised to make us healthier. He promised to make us wealthier. We're sicker and poorer. And he fundamentally understands that. Why else would he call Greg Abbott saying he's entitled to 5 seats? Why else is he trying to rig the midterm elections before one single vote is even cast? He understands his position at this moment in the United States of America. One thing he never counted on, though, was the state of California. Instead of agonizing over the state of our nation, we organized in an unprecedented way in a 90-day sprint. People from all over the United States of America contributed their voices and their support for this initiative. We stood tall and we stood firm in response to Donald Trump's recklessness. And tonight, after poking the bear, this bear roared with an unprecedented turnout in a special election with an extraordinary result. None of us, however, are naive. This is a pattern. This is a practice. Donald Trump's efforts to rig the midterm election continue to this day. And I'll reinforce that in just a moment. You're seeing him take action all across this country, not just in Texas. You saw what they were able to do in Missouri, what they did in North Carolina, what they're trying to do in Indiana, and inevitably in Florida. They are not screwing around. In June of this year, we saw 4,000 National Guard federalized in the state of California. We saw 700 active duty Marines not sent overseas, but sent to the second largest city in the United States of America to militarize our streets. We said in June this was a preview of things to come. What more evidence do you need than what happened in Washington, D.C., what's happening up in Portland, cities like Chicago? When we kicked off this campaign just 90 or so days ago in Little Tokyo, in Southern California, in L.A., at the Democracy Center, Donald Trump sent Greg Bovino. He sent his private police force that increasingly appears to have taken an oath of office to Donald Trump, not to the Constitution of the United States. He sent them to our kickoff rally to chill free expression, to chill free speech, to intimidate people from participating. Just today, in Los Angeles, Donald Trump called up the Border Patrol, sent them to Dodger Stadium, and threw a fastball at free speech, right at the head, free expression, to suppress the vote in America's second largest city. Just did that today. People in tactical gears sent out to intimidate a community that is already on edge. But you see, as we speak, people are still in line. People waiting up 3 hours to cast their vote, to send a message to Donald Trump. No crowns, no thrones, no kings. That's what this victory represents. It's a victory for the people of the state of California and the United States of America. And this is a victory that's punctuated with a sober reminder that it's not just the actions that Donald Trump has taken to federalize our guard, to begin the process of militarizing American cities, to intimidate free expression and speech by utilizing ICE and Border Patrol in American cities. But he also announced today, right when polls were opening, that this election was rigged. That this election was rigged. Of course, those are familiar words. It's exactly what Donald Trump said after January 6th, that day of love, where he tried to light democracy on fire. He tried to wreck this country, and he called in to the Secretary of State in Georgia, calling up for 11,000, 12,000 votes, just like he called Greg Abbott, saying he's entitled to those 5 seats. He said this election was rigged, and he's moving to look for criminal prosecution and investigations at the Department of Justice. He is not screwing around. So tonight, I'm proud, but I'm very mindful and sober of the moment we are living in. Donald Trump does not believe in fair and free elections, period and full stop. This is not complicated, and it's self-evident to anyone paying attention. You start to stack up all of these actions that continue to this moment and will continue in moments to come. If you think I'm exaggerating, consider his announcement just a few weeks ago to send rapid response teams all across the United States, in all 50 states, tens of thousands of members of the military prepared for urban deployment. A preview of things to come.
Live, this is your voice, your vote. Election night.
Good evening, I'm Mark Brown.
I'm Michelle Fisher. You're watching special election night coverage as California voters pass new congressional maps. We welcome those of you watching across the country on ABC News Live. California Governor Gavin Newsom speaking right now. Let's listen in.
7 million people strong, standing up, not just for themselves, but for each other and for these enduring and historic principles of our founding fathers. And I'll end on that. Next year is the 250th anniversary of the best of Roman Republic, the best of Greek democracy. This fundamental notion of a system of checks and balances, of popular sovereignty, the rule of law. Mr. President, the rule of law, not the rule of dawn. And I hope it's dawning on people. The sobriety of this moment, what's at stake. Tonight, as I said, is an extraordinary moment for our party, but again, it's an extraordinary moment affirming those principles. Our founding fathers did not live and die to see the kind of vandalism to this republic and our democracy that Donald Trump is trying to perpetuate. And so my call tonight, in the spirit of Whitman, who talked about the powerful play, goes on. We all must contribute a verse. And so we need the state of Virginia. We need the state of Maryland. We need our friends in New York, in Illinois, in Colorado. We need to see other states with their remarkable leaders that have been doing remarkable things meet this moment head on as well, to recognize what we're up against in 2026. And let me make this crystal clear. We can de facto end Donald Trump's presidency as we know it the minute Speaker Jeffries gets sworn in as Speaker of the House of Representatives. It is all on the line, a bright line in 2026. And so I want to thank everybody that stood up, not just for our democracy, but stood up for those that have feel bullied and intimidated, stood up for this notion of co-equal branches of government and a system of checks and balances. And I want to thank my wife, who reminds me every single day that this is about those that feel alone, those that feel isolated, those that feel an anxiety and a stress that they never could have imagined in their lives. This was about saying to them, we have your back, we see you, you matter, we care. And I'll just say this, I'm confident as we move forward into 2026 in this country, the best is yet to come. Thank you very much.
That's California Governor Gavin Newsom, the chief proponent of Proposition 50. Of course, this is the proposition that was launched in California at the governor's request in response to the redistricting in Texas that was at the urging of President Trump. The president asking the state legislature and the governor in the state of Texas to give him 5 more Republican House seats. They did. They redrew their districts to add 5 more safe seats for the GOP. The response from California officials, with the governor as their leader, saying we're going to do the same thing in California for the Democrats. And Prop 50 was born. It was put to a vote to the people here in California. It was done legislatively in Texas. Basically 5 seats for the GOP, now 5 more for the Democrats. It looks like that is what's going to happen tonight.
Yes, we are getting projected numbers that Proposition 50 has passed in California. Let's take a look at some of those numbers for you. 65% right now, yes, 35% no on Prop 50, with some 7 or 8 million people and votes counted right now in this election, but we know some numbers still pouring in. Some people last hour still waiting in line in some parts of our state as well. We do want to get to one of our live reporters, Josh Haskell, at the Yes on 50 campaign in Sacramento, where there's a celebratory tone there tonight. Josh?
There is, and I was thinking about 4 years ago when I was here when the results came in for the Gavin Newsom recall campaign. That was an unsuccessful campaign, successful for Gavin Newsom because he wasn't recalled, but he was angry. He stood right behind me in this exact spot. He came out here, he didn't take questions, he was not joined by his wife, and he basically said that he was disgusted that this effort even made it to the ballot. A very different Gavin Newsom here tonight. He came up, he did declare victory. He said this was a good night, not just for California, but our country, obviously referencing some of the wins for Democrats in states like New Jersey and Virginia. But I do want to highlight one line in particular that Governor Gavin Newsom spoke about, because this is something that I've heard him say so many times. He said he's proud tonight, but that he's mindful and sobering about the moment that we're in, that Donald Trump doesn't believe in free and fair elections. And you can tell that Gavin Newsom wanted California to be proud. He believes that President Trump underestimated California. He wants this country to be proud, but he also wants to remind people what he thinks is happening right now in Washington, D.C., and it is not something that he wants voters in this country to ignore. And he made that very clear, Mark and Michelle.
Josh Haskell, thank you.
We want to get to another one of our live reporters for us tonight, Cornell Barnard at the No on 50 campaign. The other side of this proposition, not as celebratory tonight there, but they say they have work to do. Cornell?
That is for sure. Certainly not a party like Josh is saying across town. A somber mood really here at California Republican headquarters. Passage of Prop 50 was called so fast tonight it made so many heads spin, especially around here. GOP leaders calling this a very sad day for the Golden State, and tonight leaders came out and talked about what they described as a political power grab by Governor Gavin Newsom. Listen to this.
This is not a Republican versus Democrat issue. This issue, Prop 50, is political insiders, political elite versus the people of California. True power lies with the people. And the passage of Prop 50 tonight takes that power away from the people of California.
Those remarks were made just a few minutes ago by GOP leaders. Critics call this a partisan special election, and Republicans admit they were certainly outspent by Democrats in this special election. Republicans say they may have more to say about this pretty stunning defeat tomorrow. We're live in Sacramento. I'm Cornell Bernard. Now back to you.
All right, Cornell, thank you very much for that report. The effects of Proposition 50 stretching far beyond California, but beyond our border.
Yeah, joining us now to discuss some of the election's ramifications, what's possibly next, Justin Levitt. He's a professor at law of Loyola Law School. Justin, your reaction to this proposition passing?
It's a big night for the California Democratic Party. It's a big night for the Democratic Party across the nation. I think that this was a response to Texas redrawing its lines, and a pretty vigorous response that we saw from the Golden State.
The turnout was high. Now let's talk about what the responses are to the passage of both of these. In Texas, it's being challenged in court. Can we expect the same in California?
I think you can absolutely expect a challenge. Death taxes and redistricting litigation every time it comes around, basically inevitable. I don't think those challenges will win. Most of the law around redistricting is up to the state, not the federal government, not federal law. And we just changed state law, apparently. If Prop 50 does, in fact, pass, that means we've recalibrated state law. I don't think there are many grounds for a legal challenge against Prop 50 to succeed.
All right. What about the voting with the Supreme Court about to possibly, in fact, probably gut the Voting Rights Act? Does that affect any of the challenges to either one of these initiatives?
That will affect maps all over the country. So if the Supreme Court decides to do something radical and could unwind 150 years worth of law in one shot, that's going to upend an awful lot of maps, not just in California. I don't know that Prop 50 makes that more or less likely. That is, if the Supreme Court decides an earthquake is coming regardless of Prop 50's results.
We also heard today from White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt, who indicated that the Trump administration might be preparing an executive order. We've seen a lot of executive orders to get things done or accomplished, and that might be targeting mail-in ballots. Our state, sends a mail-in ballot to everybody to return. What impact could that possibly have? Does that become something at this point?
No. In a word, press secretary, no relation, has claimed power that the executive just doesn't have. Most of the election rules are set by the states. Congress can override that if they want. They haven't in this particular regard. And the president's power to enact an executive order doesn't change any of the rules on the ground for any of the states or local officials that run elections. He can project power, he can communicate power, but it's not going to change how Californians actually vote. It's not going to change how we go to the polls. It's not going to change who we vote for. It's an expression of rage from the president, if that comes out, but it's not going to really affect things on the ground more than that.
When Texas did its thing, when California did its thing, it wasn't about representing voters. That was not part of the discussion. In other states, they're doing the same thing, redrawing their maps, and they're not doing it in terms of providing better representation for voters. How do we put this genie back in the bottle where maybe voters get to have some representation in Congress, and it's not about just one party jockeying for position versus another party?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's one that voters are asking all over the country. Voters absolutely hate this power grab. They hate it in Texas. They okayed it in California as a response, but I think many did so holding their noses. You've got action, as you mentioned, in Missouri and North Carolina, in a bunch of other states that are taking steps to redraw the lines, and voters across the board don't like the gamesmanship. The Supreme Court said that excessive partisan gerrymandering is unconstitutional, but it won't step in to do anything about it. And that leaves Congress as the only body in the room able to take action. They could fix all of this in one sentence, but it takes a Congress that's willing to actually get off its butt to do that. And we might need a different Congress in order to make that happen. But it's one sentence of real easy to solve all these problems.
Well, we know here in California, this proposition only redraws the maps through 2030. Does that kind of give voters, you think, some type of peace that this isn't just something that could get out of hand?
I do. I think that the voters put these propositions in place, one for the state legislative lines, one for Congress, because they were really sick and tired of politics as usual. This Prop 50 supersedes the lines for Congress for a couple years, but it doesn't undo the commission. It doesn't undo anything about the commission for the state legislature. And I think voters were really careful about both of those things going into this election. I think if they'd gotten grabbier, if they tried to undo the commission entirely or going forward, I think voters would have rejected it. And instead, voters said, yeah, temporarily, we're fine with punching back a little bit.
The implications for the president, when you talk about, clearly the party in power typically loses congressional seats in off-year elections, in the midterms. In anticipation of that, he went to Texas and said, get me 5 more seats, because it's so close at this point. The implications for him are pretty stark. He loses control of Congress. Congress now becomes an actual independent body, correct? So there's a lot riding on this.
There is, and it'd be nice to have 3 branches of government again. We've had one that's on life support, another one that's sputtering, and one that's feeling its oats a little too much, and it'd be nice to recalibrate that balance. I think that the 5 seats that Texas thinks it got and the 5 seats that California is trying to get back, those all depend on an electorate of 2020 or 2024. If an electorate of 2018 shows up, it could be even more in the Democrats' favor. If an electorate of 2018 shows up but more ticked off at what the president's doing, you could see a real blue wave sweep through Congress with real ramifications for the president down the line.
So maybe this redistricting may not have the impact that everybody thinks it might.
It might be a little bit of a catalyst to give people hope that when they show up, they'll see the results that they want, at least on the Democratic side. On the Republican side, just the opposite, and probably tamps down expectations just a bit. But the people are actually in charge here. Redistricting is not destiny. It's a bit of a seawall. A tsunami comes right in over the top of that seawall. So we ultimately get to choose who we want to represent us.
Yeah, at a time where a lot of people, I think, across the country are feeling a little hopelessness maybe, and we heard Governor Newsom speaking a bit about this in his remarks that he made. I think this proposition passing and even some of the other elections across the country have made people feel like they have a little bit more power.
I think you're right, and I think it speaks to the voice that we all have, right? The results tonight speak to what people want, and that whether what we want stays the same, it gives people confidence that their voices still matter a lot heading into next year, heading into elections next year. That's something that is really affirming. We control our own destinies here, and tonight's results are a little bit of reaffirming that and letting us know what state we're in.
All right, Justin Levitt, Loyola Law School. Thank you very much again for joining us. It is always enlightening to hear from you.
Very real pleasure.
In Corona right now in the district, one of the people who is going to be losing his job most likely in this is Republican Congressman Ken Calvert.
We want to get to Rob McMillan, who is in Corona, where voters have been waiting several hours past, well, an hour or so past that 8 o'clock deadline because they wanted to cast their vote. Rob, what's happening there now?
Right, well, we're over an hour, as you said, after the polls closed, and still about a dozen or so people there in the background waiting to cast their vote. Lines here have been in the hour to 15-minute to hour to 30-minute range all afternoon, well into the evening. I spoke with the Riverside County Registrar of Voters, and they said they haven't really had any problems, but there's been high turnout all over the county, and this is not staffed for a general election or even a midterm election. This is a special election, but certainly a controversial issue, especially here in Corona. As you guys have alluded to, this is the area that has voted for Representative Ken Calvert for more than 30 years now. And his political future, at least in Congress, is very much in doubt because the district he represents, District 41, is basically going to pick up its stakes and move about 30 miles to the west and plant them in Downey, an area that is much more urban than it is out here in Corona. And who's to say whether we don't know if Ken Calvert has to change residency to try to run again, but he would certainly have a steep hill to climb if he even chooses to run again. Now, what this means here in the city of Corona, which right now, the way the current map is, it's District 41 completely in this city, but now that Prop 50 has passed, as we presume it will, for the midterms next year, the northern half of this city will fall under District 35, that's currently represented by Norma Torres, and the southern half of this city is represented by Young Kim from Orange County. So major ramifications as far as the redrawing of these maps. And as you might imagine, this area is more conservative than liberal. So a couple of the people we spoke with tonight after the polls closed, very disappointed.
That's not fair. They're going to gain the extra 5 seats for just rerouting the lines, and these people are going to be out of a job. But
what about to those who say, hey, Texas started it? You know, they didn't do it over there.
Technically, Democrats started it over there. So it's not really, they're not telling the whole story.
I voted no because we had already passed the proposition years ago to have an independent group other than politicians. As the politicians have enough power as it is, and they're just trying to grab more power and take it away from the people.
What do you think of seeing several states getting into this redistricting battle, not just Democrat but Republican both?
I think it would be an easy way if you look at the total amount. Say California had, I'm just going to use the numbers of 60% Democrats, 40% Republicans. That should be the standard. There should be 40% representatives from the state going to the House, and the same thing with the Democrats.
And it was said earlier in this newscast that there was some level of frustration amongst voters on both sides of the aisle with all of the redistricting we see going on. We did speak with one voter who said he voted yes on Prop 50, but he did not like doing so. And he said had there not been these other redistricting issues throughout the country, he would not have voted yes on it. But how this all shakes out, how these voters in these new districts vote, well, midterms 1 year from tonight. Live in Corona, Rob McMillan, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Rob, thank you. And Ken Calvert, he got 183,216 votes last time when he was elected. Many of those people, most of them are no longer in his district. So he will have the highest, the steepest of uphill fights in order to try to keep his congressional seat.
Yeah, it changes a lot of things for a lot of people. We do want to get to Josh Haskell, who's live in Sacramento at the Yes on 50 campaign in Sacramento. And we understand you spoke with Paul Mitchell, who actually drew the new congressional map. Is that right, Josh?
That's right, Michelle. Paul Mitchell joins me right now. He was hired, redistricting partners who were hired by California Democrats to draw the maps for Prop 50. Talk about how you're feeling tonight and what do you think this vote achieves?
Well, I mean, I'm feeling really happy, not just as a Californian, but as an American. I think what it achieves is a pushback to the Trump administration, what they've been trying to do to rig this 2026 election. And that's the only reason I got involved in this. I am a nonpartisan redistricting expert. I did the independent redistricting in New York State, New York City, LA City, over 100 redistrictings in the state. I've never done partisan redistricting, but doing this to push back on Texas was really important, and I'm proud of it. I'm glad that the voters supported it.
I spoke with you many times during the campaign, and we just had our reporter Rob McMillan out in the Inland Empire. He was talking about Ken Calvert, California 41. And I remember asking you, Ken Calvert, he was very upset. He basically said Democrats can't beat me, so they're essentially erasing my district. And your reaction to that I thought was fascinating. When you hear someone like that complain about what was just achieved in California, what's your reaction?
Well, it's the same thing I would say to Kevin Kiley if he showed up, or Doug LaMalfa, and that is these are Republicans in leadership. Ken Calvert, more so than any of them, like the head of the delegation for California members, they knew what the president was doing in Texas. They knew what the governor could do in response. This whole thing was mapped out for them. There were signals sent to Republican members. These are the districts that will be drawn. And they didn't go to the White House. They didn't go to Trump. They didn't go to Stephen Miller, who's from California and understands California politics. They didn't go and run the traps on trying to stop the president from doing what he's doing in Texas. And unfortunately, they are now the ones paying the price.
And Paul, I want to bring in Monica Madden from KGO, ABC 7 News Bay Area, our sister station. Monica, you have been covering this campaign from the very beginning. What did you take from Governor Newsom's remarks tonight? Obviously declaring victory, but also a stark warning.
Yeah, it was certainly a sober tone coming from the governor. He was talking about the moment that we were at. We've heard him kind of take this more reflective vibe, if you will, recently when he's talking about the current state of the union, the current state of what's going on in Washington. And he talked about what we've heard from President Trump just earlier this morning, casting doubt on the election integrity here in California. And so you heard the governor say Donald Trump does not want fair and free elections. We've heard the governor repeatedly say that he does not think that there will be a 2028 presidential election if the president wants to find a way to get a third term in some way, shape, or form. So I was really struck by him taking this more sober tone. I think a lot of us were expecting to hear the governor, on his victory lap. Prop 50 obviously has huge impacts, not just nationwide, but for his political ambitions as he does mull whether or not he wants to run for president in 2028. But it was really striking to hear him kind of take a more muted tone when he talked about this big win for Democrats here in California.
We also know that the governor is always very proud of the state of California, but he also felt like President Trump underestimated California. What do you want to say about that, Paul? Because I thought that this was an effort that Trump didn't really get involved in. He obviously has said that this election may have been rigged without any evidence. He posted that on Truth Social this morning. But what is your reaction to sort of Trump's role in all of this?
Well, Trump definitely stepped away from this election, and it was interesting. Their campaign started off on the no side. They spent $30 million in the first few weeks of this election, including sending mailers to voters even before the bill passed the legislature. And then they went dark in the last 10 days or last week of the election. It was like they had given up. And that was really telling, and we'll see in the final data how much that actually potentially impacted the turnout on the no side of voters who would have otherwise come out and voted. But also what I want to add to what the governor was saying, you notice he name-checked other states, other Democratic states, Maryland, Virginia, New York, where I did the independent commission, and said essentially, it's now your turn. I think he's trying to lead a lot of these other Democratic states to take on Trump as we go through the rest of this kind of redistricting more nationally.
I just want to ask Monica one more quick thing. What is next for Governor Newsom after this?
Well, I think he'll take a moment to pause. He said that whether or not he decides to run for president, he'll make that announcement after the 2026 midterms. But like Paul just noted, encouraging some of the other states to join in on this redistricting effort. Right now, where things stand, right now, correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like Republicans are set to gain about 9 seats if the gerrymandering goes well. I know Paul can talk about dummy mandering when it backfires on you, but so 5 versus 9, Republicans are in a better position for these midterms. So I think you're going to see the governor not just encouraging some of these blue states to join in and do something similar to Prop 50, but I also think we're going to see the governor being a really big surrogate out on the campaign trail for those midterms. He has shown in this moment that he has a lot of national influence with all of the money that he was able to fundraise for Prop 50 outside California. So I think, right now he is the de facto Democratic resistance to President Donald Trump. We're going to see him on the campaign trail in 2026.
Well, thank you both so much for joining us. I'll send it back to you, Mark and Michelle from Sacramento. Our coverage continues.
All right. Thank you very much to all of you for your insights and your reporting. There's been a lot of reporting all across the state of California, different locations where people are responding differently to Prop 50. Victory narrower in some parts of the state, also losing in some parts of the state in some of the interior counties. We're going to go to Fresno now. Gabe Ferris is at the Fresno County Elections Office where they are counting the votes there. Gabe, what can you say? Tell us.
Well, Mark and Michelle, as has already been said a few times tonight, the Central Valley here home to a third, 3 of the state's 9 Republicans in Congress. So now that we know Prop 50 is projected to pass, the implications here will certainly be far-reaching. Now, over the past few weeks in my coverage of this proposition, I have spent a lot of time in different communities here in the central region of the state. And I have to tell you, every voter who I spoke with over these past few weeks told me that they were going to vote no on Proposition 50. They just didn't like it. And they specifically, most of them actually mentioned what was going on in Texas and said that was different. They said voters here had approved an independent commission and they believe that vote back from 2010 should be upheld. In fact, the only people who I spoke with over the past few weeks who told me they supported Prop 50 and would be voting yes were members of the Fresno County Democratic Party. And of course, you would expect them to vote that way. And now just a final thought here. We do have the preliminary numbers in from the Fresno County Registrar and Clerk here. And you can see in Fresno County voted to approve Prop 50 by just about an 1,800 vote margin. Of course, that is subject to change. It will still be several hours or even days until we know the breakdown through the rest of this region, though. For now, I'll send it back to you, Mark and Michelle.
All right, Gabe Ferris live in Fresno tonight. Thank you for your coverage there. We do want to get some final thoughts from Professor Justin Levitt, who's been with us tonight sharing his insight. Professor Levitt, your takeaway from tonight.
So I think there were a lot of doubts and questions and fears maybe going into today about the process and would it work, and about the results and would they hold and would people be able to see themselves in the results. And I think across the board, this gives confidence in the process and in the voice of the people, right? Gabe was sitting in Fresno County watching the ballots being counted, a very regular process, a really smooth election across the board. And what that does is it allows people to have their voice heard. Tonight in Prop 50, next year with the midterms, I think it gives people confidence that they matter in this, that every vote matters. And I think what you're seeing tonight in California and across the rest of the country is a little bit of that across the board.
Democracy is not dead.
Indeed. Very much alive.
All right, Justin Levitt, thank you so much for joining us. Let's take another look now at the results in Proposition 50, the only matter on the ballot in the state of California on this night of the special election. And with 65% of the vote in, the tally has basically stayed roughly the same throughout much of the evening. A resounding yes at this point, 65% to 35%. A lot of votes still to be counted, but again, this projection was made right around 8 o'clock as soon as the polls closed, based on exit polling, that the proposition would pass and has passed, and it appears certainly that it definitely has.
Yes, and as we heard from our live reporters all across the state of California tonight, this is something that was expected from both sides, honestly, especially when you look at how much money was spent by both sides, some of the big names that came out to show their support for Democrats and the yes to Prop 50 side. So not really a surprise for many people tonight in our state, but the big question, which remains to be unseen, is what happens next and how this impacts the midterm elections.
Indeed, the midterm elections. I think if you're a Democrat looking at the results tonight, not only in California, but nationwide in terms of the other locations, we're talking about New Jersey, Virginia, Pennsylvania, where the Supreme Court there is still in the hands of Democrats. Democrats would have to be pretty happy with the way things have turned out. Republicans might have some pause based on what they are seeing, because in a lot of these states where they hoped they had a shot, in particular the Attorney General's office in Virginia, where the Democratic candidate had a pretty scandalous revelation about some emails that he had sent, or some texts that he had sent, advocating violence against his opponents, and still won. That should give Republicans perhaps some concerns as they look for where they might be a year from now.
Yeah, and another big question which remains to be unseen is the political future of Governor Gavin Newsom, who we heard speak tonight, but he said he had a bit of a somber tone because he says there's still a lot to be cautious about with regard to the current administration. So we appreciate you watching. This is our our statewide coverage from California of Proposition 50.
Thank you for watching. Good night.